I don't even really know how to get into this one. So I'm really just going to try to do my best here. And to tell you the truth, 100%, I watched the movie about 2 or 3 weekends ago, and there's a part of me that's still processing what I saw. Now, I know that when you look at the title of this, some of you might be thinking, oh, this is something for kids, toddlers, preteens, whatever. This is not like that. I can tell you right now, this is something entirely different. Now, one of my favorite websites is Common Sense Media. And what this is basically a website that breaks down its reviews of TV shows, movies, video games, books, and a few other things in the entertainment world. Now, check this out right here. So when I go here, so transformed into feral and bloodthirsty, Winnie the Pooh and Piglet terrorize Christopher Robin and a group of young women at a remote house. Now, this is a horror film. This is a thriller slasher that has real actors in it. This is not a cartoon, so this is not the cartoon that we grew up watching. This is not that at all. So now let's see. The budget on the movie was $100,000. The box office was just over 5 million. So, okay, so it was successful for them. Now, basically what it was about was, so there's going to be some spoilers here. Just a warning, there's going to be some spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie and you don't want to hear any spoilers, I suggest you don't finish watching this video. Unless you don't care to hear the spoilers and you might feel indifferent on whether or not you'll watch it, then feel free to keep watching. But I'm just letting you know there's going to be some spoilers. So it all starts off with Christopher Robin, and he's friends with the group of animals, Pooh, Piglet, all of them. So you got Rabbit, Eeyore, and Owl. For some reason, Tigger wasn't in this. I don't know why, but check it out. So everything's going fine and dandy. He's hanging out with them, and he brings them food and helps take care of them and whatnot. And then he goes off to college for about 5 years. And during his time in college, he never visited them. For whatever reason, he didn't really explain that part. We don't know. So during his time of absence, the animals basically had no way to get food. And so they became, as they just said, feral and bloodthirsty. And so what happened? They started killing and eating each other. They had to eat Eeyore alive. That part, I know some of you are thinking that's disturbing to say the least, but trust me, this is just barely the tip of the iceberg. This doesn't even touch what I'm getting ready to describe to you once I read to you the violence that took place. So after that, they felt betrayed, and they decided to go on this rampage where they're just going around and killing innocent humans, and then they want their revenge on Christopher. So before I continue the rest of that, let me go into Common Sense Media and let me show you how they broke it down. Now, they have a thing on here called positive messages. On a scale of 1 to 5, they gave it a 1 because it says here, no messages here except listen to the news and stay away from scary woods where people are regularly killed. I think that should be the message given from pretty much every slasher movie that has been out there. I'm pretty sure people got that message from Jason, Freddy, Mike Myers, and Ghostface, and Chucky, and anything that's like that. I'm pretty sure those movies already told us that, but that's all right. Positive role models. They didn't give a very good rating here. This is on a scale of 1 to 5. This is a 0. Characters aren't very smart, and survival isn't their strength. Turns beloved children's book characters into bloodthirsty murderers. Diverse representations. You have Christopher Robin. You have women who are central characters and are shown to be supportive friends. But unfortunately, they're quickly hacked to bits, apparently lacking even the most basic common sense. 2 of the women friends are a lesbian couple. No notable characters of color. Let's see. There was some strong language in here. There was some cursing, some 4-letter words here. Definitely something that didn't match up to the kids' show. Let's see. Now, here's the part I kind of want to get to right here. Let's talk about the violence. The violence on a scale of 1 to 5 was definitely a 5. and it says a lot. And so anything that you saw from those other slasher films that I listed, anything that you saw from a Texas Chainsaw Massacre, anything you saw from Freddy, Jason, Halloween, Scream, Chucky, any of that stuff, this movie pretty much has all of that, plus more. Plus more. Extreme blood and gore. Extreme violence against women, dead bodies, bloody wounds, women strangled with chains, woman's head bashed, body fed into wood chipper, woman's head run over by car, skull crushed by tire, eyeball pops out, smashed head shown, sledgehammer to woman's head, huge spray of blood, blade shoved through woman's mouth and back of head pinned to wall, severed head, woman's neck sliced, woman stabbed in skull, entrails, shower of blood, spitting blood, character whipped with rope, woman repeatedly slapped, woman tied up, woman chained up with bloody face and swollen eye, gun and one gunshot, face ripping, arm snapping with bloody sprays. Oh, it doesn't stop here. It doesn't stop here. More head smashing. Piglet hit with a sledgehammer. Pooh's face covered in blood. Exploding vehicles. Bloody meat hooks. A stalker terrorizes a woman in flashback. Woman knocked out with chloroform. Narrator explains that Pooh and his friends killed and ate Eeyore to survive. A woman has been traumatized by a stalker. Yeah, that all took place in Winnie the Pooh. And we're not talking about the kids show. This is a horror film where they turned friendly, lovable kids characters into psychopathic, criminal, murderous characters. And I gotta tell you, and I grew up, and Winnie the Pooh was a cartoon, like as I've stated a couple times already. That was a cartoon that I and a lot of people in my generation, and even probably some of the past generation, I don't know exactly what year the show first came out, but a lot of us grew up watching it and we enjoyed it. And I can tell you right now, you might think this is wrong for me to say, but considering this is a horror film, I don't think it's wrong for me to say it. This is the first time that I've ever rooted for Winnie the Pooh to die. And Piglet. I'm sorry. I had to say that. I'm sorry. And to any adult, any parent who, if you have kids, don't let them watch this unless you want them to be traumatized. But I don't think you want to do that. Don't do that to those kids. If they're anything below the age of 18, don't let them watch this. Do not let them watch this. And I'm still, it's like, come on, why did they do this with the, and if I'm not mistaken, I think I saw something that said that the people who produced that movie, the people who put that movie together, I think they were talking about doing the same thing with some other kids stuff that we grew up watching. I think somebody mentioned something about Peter Pan and Bambi and stuff like that. And I said, good grief, you're just taking everything that we grew up with. You're basically ruining the whole childhood. I mean, so there's that there. Let's see what else Common Sense Media had to say about this. One person on here said, don't watch this unless you want your childhood ruined. This shouldn't even be created in the first place. This was a movie that was too hard to watch. I'd rather watch Dora the Explorer or Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. I don't even know what the second one is. This person here says, please do not watch this if you're under 18 or your childhood would be ruined. Very, very gory and violent. I know it has the F word. I also mentioned that too. Here's a couple other parent reviews. This person says, interesting. I wouldn't let my child watch this movie unless they were 20. The violence to women is terrible, along with lots of blood and lots of bad words. If you are looking for a good scary movie, check out Megan, which I did, and that was good. I have a review on that too if you guys want to check that out. It has some blood and some bad words, but it is a better movie. While I like this movie, it is very violent, some mild sex, drinking, and lots of blood. I honestly love this movie because I like horror movies, but I would say it has swear words, including the F word, drinking, violence, and lots of blood and gore as little kid characters from little kid shows are seen stalking and killing people and lots of swearing. Way too violent and sexual. This movie looks good at first until seen. Please don't watch until you're 18 or older. Now, a quick synopsis right here of the story. And of course, I described some of it, but here's how they broke it down. In Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, young Christopher Robin grows up playing with his friends Pooh, Piglet, Rabbit, Owl, and Eeyore in the 100-acre wood. But one day he must leave for college. After that, the animals begin to starve and decide to kill and eat Eeyore, and then they become twisted versions of their former selves, sworn to kill and eat humans, especially Christopher Robin. 5 years later, Christopher, who's played by Nikolai Leon, returns home only to discover that his former friends are now monsters. Meanwhile, his wife Marie, I don't know, was that his? Okay, I'm sorry, I messed that part up. I have to. Meanwhile, Marie, played by Maria Taylor, who's been traumatized by a stalker, is advised to take a vacation, so she gathers up her friends and heads to a remote cabinet not far from the 100-acre wood. The question is it any good? After the subversive idea of turning beloved children's book characters into brutal killers wears off, all that's left in this low-budget horror movie are boring cliches and frustrating characters. The grungy-looking Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey begins with a crudely animated prologue that explains how the characters turned into hybrid creatures, and most of the fun ends there. Not to mention that after the prologue, we never see Rabbit or Owl again. Who knows what happened to them? There are a couple of giggles early on thanks to visuals like a swarm of bees following Pooh around or Pooh drooling disgustingly at the thought of a snack. But it's not long before the movie becomes a showcase for hacking up young women. Perhaps the worst idea is introducing Marie as a traumatized survivor of a sexual predator who then must face yet more horror. It feels cruel. By the time the movie reaches its what ending, Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey has turned from a bizarre, controversial internet meme into totally forgettable slasher movie. And can you tell that, like, just based on some of the wording that's in there, this doesn't match with what was supposed to be a kid's thing, a kid's form of entertainment. I mean, they're talking about stalking, they're talking about murder, they're talking about sexual predators. I don't know. I don't know where they got it from. I have no idea. The people who put this movie together basically said, let's just take a kid's movie or a kid's show and turn that into some sick, twisted slasher film that's going to be worse than Freddy, Jason, and Halloween combined. And they did it. They said, oh, let's look at a few kid shows. Let's look at, okay, so we got the Dora the Explorer, we got Blue's Clues, we got Bambi, we got Little Bear, we got all this stuff, Sesame Street. Oh, how about Winnie the Pooh? Yeah, let's do that. We'll work on the others later, but let's start with Winnie the Pooh. Let's turn him into a murderer, and let's make people hate him, and let's make people root for him to die. It kind of worked to a certain degree. But keep in mind, don't mess with the originals. That's what they always say. Don't mess with the originals. Leave them alone. Leave them for the kids to enjoy. And listen to what these people said. Do not watch this movie if you're under 18. Go ahead if you want to. But if you watch it and you get incredibly scared and you start having nightmares, don't say that we didn't warn you. I'm just giving you what they said, and I'm just giving you my take. It's an opinion. Talk to your kids about, families can talk about Blood and Honey's violence. How did it make you feel? What did the movie show or not show to achieve this effect? Why is that important? Is the movie scary? What's the appeal of horror films? Why do people sometimes like to be scared? Okay, here's the best way I can answer some of those questions, and I'll do my best here. How did it make you feel? It made me feel kind of messed up to know that this came from a kid's thing. And what did the movie show or not show to achieve the effect? All those things that I read that were in the violent section, all the people somebody was burned alive, somebody drowned, somebody was hit by a car, somebody was cut, shot, decapitated, body thrown into a wood chipper. That's what it did to achieve that effect. As far as what it not did, well, let's just say that 99% of the characters were killed by Piglet and Pooh with those actions. Let's just say that. Is the movie scary? Yeah, you can say that. What's the appeal of horror movies? Why do people sometimes like to be scared? Okay, I can kind of feel this one. Let me just say this. I think one of the reasons why I like horror films, and why other my fellow people, fans of horror films, I think the reason why we like horror films is because we like to watch something that keeps us guessing along the way, and something that keeps your heart racing, and something that keeps you at the edge of your seat, like, oh, what's going to happen next? What are they going to do now? And see, I like some action movies. I mean, don't get me wrong. We all like our superhero films, Superman, Batman, the Avengers, stuff like that. But generally with stuff like that, we already know what's going to happen. Superhero, bad guy comes and messes up the town. Superhero comes and fights the villains. They save the day. You might lose some lives there, but at the end of the day, the good guys win, the bad guys lose, and the town is safe. That is basically every single action movie ever, as far as superhero action. And as far as like romance and comedy and stuff like that, there's love interests and people, the main guy and the main girl get together in the end. So most of those movies have that same frame and that same structure. Whereas with a lot of horror films, it could go either way. A lot of times, a lot of the good people have died in the horror films, and that's unfortunate. But I just think it's that aspect of suspense, thriller, mystery, who done it type thing. And like, as I talk about on this show all the time, and I talk about a lot of crime shows, that's why I like shows like SVU, Criminal Minds. Who's the killer? Who did it? How did they track him down? I think horror films kind of have that aspect in it as well. As far as why do people sometimes like to be scared, that one it's a little more difficult for me to answer that one, because I don't know if I've ever really had that conversation with anybody. It's like, hey, do you like to be scared? Or I don't know anybody that likes to be scared. I just think they like, how do I put this? It just keeps you guessing at each turn. People like to kind of border on nervous and anxiety when they see stuff like that. I think that's the appeal of horror films. Now, obviously, they're never going to gross the money that most action films gross. That's never going to happen. They don't get that type of love and attention. The worst action movie will still make more money than the best horror movie. The best horror movie would get somewhere between 250 and 300 million. The worst action movie would for sure get no less than 300 million. So those numbers are still close, but the action movie still kind of edges it out. I know I digressed a little bit on that, but so that's what that was about. Now let's see some of the reviews with the Google users. And let's look at some of the other reviews too. Internet Movie Database gave it a 31%. Metacritic gave it a 16%. And amongst Google users, we see, wow. Google users, we see 42 to 57%. And on these bars that I see, that's 1 to 5, most of them are at a 1. I see a couple 5 stars there. I see some 4, 3, and 2, but most of it is 1. Rotten Tomatoes gave it only a 3%. Only 3%. That's bad even for Rotten Tomatoes. Okay, Rotten Tomatoes is known for kind of, that and Metacritic are known for giving a lot of movies low ratings. If it's a really, really good movie, they'll give it like 65 to 70%, maybe close to 80 if it's that good. IGN, only 40%. Let's see what some of these people had to say. Now, one 5-star says, watching Winnie on the big screen was an exhilarating experience. Seeing his voluptuous figure stalk through the shadows was more... I don't even know if I should read that part. I'm sorry, people. I'm sorry I stopped that in mid-sentence, but I think I'm going to skip that part. Let's just say, basically what he's saying is watching the movie it felt really, really good. Watching the creativity in which the attractive yellow bear carried out his vengeance against Christopher Robin was a truly magnificent sight to behold. Well, that depends on who you ask. Furthermore, the inclusion of Piglet served as a welcome addition to the film's plot and overall enjoyment. Seeing the beautiful pink creature known as Piglet carry out his bloody revenge against the victims of this film was almost as exhilarating as the sheer sexual appeal of the creature. Wow. Yeah, first of all, they were animals. And second, well, I mean animals both physically, literally, and metaphorically. They were monsters too. And so I don't know where you got sexual appeal from, but okay, your opinion is your own. I'm going to leave it at that. Watching the two large sexual beasts known as Winnie and Piglet was a truly magnificent sight. Seeing Winnie's yellow face on screen for the first time Okay, I'm just gonna stop that one right there because I don't. This one right, the sheer and homoerotic thrill. Okay, I don't know what the hell that person's talking about. That's kind of disturbing, but I get what they're saying, but they're just putting too much sexual words in there, and I'm not gonna really say that on this show. So we're gonna skip that for now. If you want to know what they say, go to Google Images. I'm sorry, Google users. The person's name is Solus Spartan. Go ahead and read what you want there. So he gave it a 5 star. He or she, whoever, I don't know. Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey was a cinematic masterpiece. It delivered everything a great horror slasher movie has to offer, from the show-stopping acting, fantastic storytelling, and pleasing cinematography to brutal, outrageous, and heinous scenes. I love the backstory at the very beginning of the movie. It was very well crafted with its visuals and emotions that I may even prefer to a 90 minutes version of it rather than the movie itself. It's deplorable that it only lasted about 2 minutes. I'd argue that it was the best 2 minutes of the entire movie. Pooh and Piglet were very well crafted, relatable, and vile antagonists. I sympathized with each on a deeper level than most people wouldn't understand. I know the feeling of abandonment and the unbearable, inhumane urge for vengeance. I have to admit the actors have done a sensational job of displaying the characters. It's upsetting that I haven't heard any of the actors before given their outstanding acting abilities. With such emotive writing, there wasn't a single dull moment. This made me invested in the characters, therefore it was absolutely heart-wrenching watching them suffer through not deserved deaths. Aside from the actors themselves, I absolutely fell in love with the protagonists of the story. They were all so intelligent, and their decision-making skills left me speechless. Such relatable and realistic characters. I can confidently say this is exactly how everyone would react faced with homicidal monsters. Okay, so he has a lot of other stuff right here. So that was 5 star. Another 5 star said, I cannot think of a single flaw in this film. It puts films like Shawshank Redemption to shame. The part where Pooh said, it's pooing time, gave me goosebumps. The movie was incredible. So that was the 5 star. So here's what the 1 star said. One person here said, well now, LOL. This movie had potential to be an awesome dark twist in the children's classic. Because let's face it, most traditional fairy tales stem from semi-twisted truth. I was hopeful. However, instead of instilling fear and terror, I found myself laughing. So at least I was entertained. Spoiler alert, the only horrific element of the movie was the rendition of the whole two characters of 100 Acre Woods, Pooh and Piglet, two very strangely large, rubbery, slow, full figure, slightly inbred renditions. Well, sort of. The subpar acting, excessive use of smoke, dry ice, slightly disturbing dark undertone, and weak and predictable storyline all added to the sad horror of what could have been. As a horror and thriller enthusiast, I will give credit to some of the gory scenes only because those few were unexpected, but the actual effects used were terrible. Overall, it is a load of poo. Good choice of words. That's and that I would say that that's definitely a pun intended. You can't possibly rate this film low enough. The acting along with the dialogue was dreadful. I mean, seriously awful. The story was weaker than paper bag full of Piglet droppings. This is time wasted. I'm never getting it back. I hope everyone involved in the film gets buggered by a real life bear. Quite literally the worst film I've ever seen. If I had to watch this again, I would scoop out my own eyes with the nearest rusty object just so I don't have to sit through this utter mess of a so-called movie. I don't understand this, and I'd rather just categorize this as gore with no plot for the people who just like bloody murder scenes. Now, if I had to give you my personal rating on it on a scale of 1 to 10, and I really had to sit and think long and hard about this one. I really had to just sit and think. When the movie was done, I said, what did I just watch? And how do I feel about this? And I don't say this one too often, but this time I can actually see both sides, kinda. It's like on one hand, I get why people thought it was terrible because you took a children's classic and just turned them into bloodthirsty criminals, murderers. And now this whole thing about stalkers and sexual predators and things like that. But on the other hand, it's like, it had a great amount of the aspects of thriller, suspense, and intensity. If I had to give a scale on 1 to 10, I would say I want to say about a 6 or a 7 at most. I want to say about a 6 or 7. I'm not going to spoil the ending. I'm going to leave that part for you to watch if you decide to watch it. By the way, the movie is available to watch on Amazon Prime. Um, I think the ending could have been a lot better. I think the ending was sad, disappointing, a little bit frustrating, irritating. Uh, I'm not going to state exactly what happened. You're going to have to watch it yourself. To those of you that are not familiar with this movie at all, I'm going to put the link to the trailer in the comment section. So I just wanted to give you that. And as they say on the news all the time, and there we have it. And there we have it. You heard it here, folks. So that's it. Winnie the Pooh is not the beloved, lovable oaf that we grew up with. He is a bloodthirsty murderer. He's a psychopath, and so is Piglet. This is not what we grew up watching. So you watch it and you tell me what you think.